Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and to some of you, good morning, everybody. Um, Welcome to the 119th edition of ClariTea Chat. Today we have with us Amol Deshpande, Group Chief Digital Officer of RPG Group, one of India's fastest growing business groups having a presence in infrastructure, automotive tires, information technology, pharmaceuticals, energy, and plantations. Phew. Hey Amol, welcome to the ClariTea Chat.
Hey Jagdish, thank you to be here. Thank you for the
Nice.
invitation. I'm very happy to be here.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to host you here, Amol. So, just a quick bit intro about Amol. Amol has 26 years of experience in automotive technology, operations, customer experience, and innovation in automotive farm equipment and conglomerates. Though most of it has been in automotive, and which is what I love about Amol, being an automotive guy myself. Well, Amol studied mechanical engineering in Amravati. He started his career at Tata Motors, moved on to global bigwigs across India, USA, Europe, like Ford, Chrysler, and then came back to Mahindra and then joined the RPG group last year. So his leadership philosophy is technology has tremendous potential to solve problems not only for the industry but also for humanity at large. So he'll share his insights on how to do it all, and we'll cover his journey with a focus on a few themes. We keep our chats very thematic, even though they are focused on a guest. We try to make it to have some good solid takeaways for our audience. So we will talk about grounding in operations mastery, global exposure, customer experience excellence. He's done a lot of work there, building organizations and COEs, and very exciting innovations with AI and Metaverse. So we'll as usual cover this in the backdrop of his life story, but our focus will be on these themes. We'll end the chat with a rapid fire round to bring out the personal side of Amol and then a reverse question to me. And I invite all my audience to participate in the rapid fire. Whatever curiosities or questions they have about Amol, you can ask that in the rapid fire section. For now, Amol, before we start talking of serious things, let's get some energy going. Okay.
Sure.
Please share any funny incident or the most memorable incident in your life which brings a smile to our audience face.
Uh, I can quote a very funny and little awkward, both at the same time, kind of an experience I went to, and it happened when I was in Tata Motors. I was a young engineer out of college, GET kind of a thing, and there was a lookalike who was there in the same plant, and he was a very much a prospective candidate for marriage. So oftentimes I used to be mistook, and a lot of these senior old people who were looking for a prospective son-in-law used to come and chase me in place of him.
Oh, that
So
reminds. Go ahead.
that used to be hilarious. And then when one fine day I found the man who it was, then he bribed me to continue to do that so that he would kind of get rid of all that attention he was getting.
No, that reminds me. In fact, one of our seniors used to warn us. I joined Tata Motors in Jamshedpur, and it was the same case that people, uh, actually now that looking back, I realize it, but we didn't realize it then. People used to be eyeing the Tata Motors GTs as future son-in-laws. Okay, and they would ask you all kinds of questions about, like, your place and your gotra and all of that sometimes. Well, but now looking back, I mean, if I have to look for a match, I would actually prefer a telco GT. So I can understand what you were going through.
So, but
Yeah,
that used to be hilarious and awkward at the same time because I was not into that whole
I understand.
considerations at
In
that
the,
time.
in the, in the, it used to be awkward for us also. We were never there in that mindset. And why are people like asking all those kind of questions? So, but then, thanks for that light moment, Amol. At the ripe age of not so ripe age of 22, being sought out for as a groom. Okay. So, well, there are more things coming up in our discussion. But let me first do a ritual that we always do, which is acknowledge our audience. So we have CXOs, founders, IT managers, and seasoned technology leaders in our audience. All of us know that technology is necessary, but not sufficient to drive business performance. The guests on Clarity Chat have built the bridge between necessary and sufficient with the art of managing technologies. And Clarity Chat builds that bridge between their learnings and all of you who are trying to make a powerful impact with technology. So, thank you all for joining us for the past 118 episodes and encouraging us with your interactions and questions. May I request our audience to share their name and where they are joining from in the comment box of LinkedIn or YouTube? And I can see Amarinder already here. He is the first one to raise the hand, the best student in the class. Amarinder. So, hey, Amarinder, greetings to everyone from Namma, Mangaluru, and so from Pune and Mumbai. Chai cheers. Uh, hey, thanks, Amrinder, for being there for almost all of our episodes, and I think that means a lot to me and my team. We know that Amrinder will definitely be there. So, thank you all for attending. Let's get on with our curiosities on Amol. So, Amol, please give us an overview of your education, career, the company's roles, and just one highlight from each in terms of how it became a step in your journey moving forward.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Jagdish, for having me on this session of Clarity Chat. Closing in almost 119 episodes is a big thing. So many congratulations to the entire Clarity Chat team here. And thank you for having me. Very warm hello to all the participants and audience who have joined. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on the time zones where you are. Quick thing about me, Jagdish has given a brief interview. As most of my life, I had been a person in automotive industry, not by plan, but it is just happened. I would say it was destined. Spent my early formative years in Tata Motors. Lot of domain knowledge I acquired while I was working in various roles and responsibilities. I've followed by a close to 8 year stint in United States where I did some research work. I also worked with the global brands like Ford and Daimler Chrysler, where I got an opportunity to uh, implement more actively in terms of technologies what we see otherwise on a regular basis. Give me a larger perspective on the global scale, how operations happen, how the collaborations happen, how different regions work, what are the challenges which are faced by the large organizations spread across multiple geographical locations. And then my another last stint is in India for last 16 years, where I worked with Mahindra and Mahindra for a very long period of time. And then for last 1 year, I'm working with RPG Group as Chief Group Digital Officer and Head of Innovation. The journeys in Mahindra and RPG had been very rewarding. I would say got a lot to learn about the Indian scenarios, Indian scheme of things, Indian customer behavior, Indian operations, and completely a different story from what I had seen in the Western world. So that's very briefly about my journey in terms of my career so far. And happy to be here to talk to you, Jagdish.
Oh no, absolutely, absolutely, and you've just given us a glimpse of what you have. So as we go forward, I'm sure we'll dig deeper into those experiences and see what's there as well. So Amol, when we were talking, I think you had a very momentous 3 4 years in Tata Motors, especially leading the car plant and all that. So tell us in detail and what were those top three learnings, which have helped you throughout so far. I'm sure these
So,
will be useful to our audience. Yeah, go ahead.
sure. So, Jagdish, basically, if I look back, I owe a lot in my entire career to what I did in Tata Motors, what I learned in Tata Motors. In terms of getting a very first-hand experience to technologies, getting a first-hand experience to the actual manufacturing processes. I worked with Indica plant, which was one of the most high-tech manufacturing plants in the country at that point in time, with the largest investment coming from any business house in the automotive industry space. That gave a lot of exposure to technologies. So if I have to pick top three, it's basically I understood the domain, what happens, how it happens, the importance of processes, methods, checks. And third, which is last but not least, is the human factor, the human relationships and believing in people. Got a lot of free hand to do things. There was a lot of trust, and nothing was inaccessible. Even though we were fresh from college, learning our ropes and making some mistakes along the way, those mistakes were encouraged. We were not, those actions were not held against. It was always seen in the light of education, understanding, and trying to make good. I think that's a very important value. And the other aspect from a human perspective, what I learned is I worked on production lines, and working with the actual manufacturing teams, the shop floor workers, and all of those, they they make you complete. While they might not have the fancy degrees or the formal education as the engineers would have, but at times they know more about the job than the engineers would do. And it's a very interesting way how they judge, assess, and then trust you. Once they trust you, then you are one of them.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, and um, okay. So just to recap, you got first-hand experience in technology, manufacturing processes. You understood the domain, process, methods, checks, and I think at the heart of technology everywhere, I think it's the domain. It's the how you understand how the processes work, and what kind of checks and balances, and how can you sort of make them more efficient. I think IT, the starting point is always the processes, right? And I think very important one you picked up on the human connections, the trust, and the accessibility of people. I still remember, like, I mean, in Tata Motors, we could always reach out at any level. You just need to ask for time, and you will get it. And especially if you're a GT, people would like give you time on priority. Much later, I realized why.
Okay.
It's because GTs are really looked up as the future of the company. And I think the biggest one, which I also kind of resonate with you, is that mistakes were encouraged. You could make mistakes and you could get away with it as long as you don't put the company at risk. um, but yeah, that's a very solid grounding, actually. Yeah. And I think
Sure.
this is equally true for anyone who's building an organization, or who's, like, setting up a function, or who's setting up a department. Those things, like, allow people to make mistakes, build the human connections. They form the foundation of a strong operation, the human connections, and have a solid set of processes, methods, controls, and of course a technology backbone, right? So no, good one, Amol. Thanks for that. So Amol, going forward, your work experience went across to, you know, first the global automotives, and then coming back to Mahindra. So, maybe something that everyone will be curious about. What is the difference you find between the global and Indian auto companies, and what are the three unique differentiators you got by working for Ford and Chrysler, which you could use later on when you came back to India?
Sure. So, see, Jagdish, I got opportunity to work with big brands like Ford, Daimler, Chrysler while I was in US, and these are like mammoth organizations. These are not small organizations. Ford is basically the entire automotive industry's credit can be given to Henry Ford making that first car in his garage, right? So that's there. Uh, One particular thing I can tell you, organization wise. So Ford at that point in time had all these, big fancy brands with it, right from Jaguar, Land Rover, Aston Martin, Volvo, Mazda, and so on and so forth. So got a very unique opportunity to see how a company operates in different parts of the world and how the different brands operate. Uh, I used to be a global SME for some of the processes which Ford was implementing under their transformational program, and so what conversation you have with Japan will be a completely different format when you have that conversation with Europe. Even within Europe, the UK would talk differently, communicate differently, operate differently versus how Sweden would do, and then rest of the world. So those were the mammoth organizations. At times, their scale kind of prohibited them being agile. That is
Hmm.
something which was a very important thing, but there was a very strong reliance on process. When you run such large organizations, there is a process for everything. At times you may feel it very frustrating, but at times that is something what is required when you run and part of large organizations. Of course, being in Detroit, which is the hub of UAW, one could also see how strong cultural domination is there of those, uh, I would say, in that organizational fabric. When it comes to dealing with different people, different types of process changes, and so on and so forth. Uh, for the first time, I saw a lot of women in an automotive company when I was with Ford. That is something which was there doing and driving from lot of senior positions. That was one cultural difference, if you will, I found. uh, Daimler Chrysler was relatively a different experience, smaller in size compared to Ford, but a lot of interesting product, very definitive range of products, very clear cut focus on their market segment, which products they wanted to focus upon, and a very strong element of collaboration with Germany. So that was something which was a very, very key aspect. Uh, I didn't get a chance to work so much with Germany when I was with Ford, but that was, I think, done more than compensated more than enough when I was with Chrysler. Uh, they took pride in their engineering design. At one point in time, Chrysler called all its product designed beautifully, engineered beautifully. Now, they were probably the first ones before Steve Jobs came up with a beautiful engineering. So uh, they took very strong
That
sense
is
of pride in making sure that their vehicles look beautiful.
awesome, awesome. So I think just capping it. So in Ford, it was like differences in cultures, communications, operations, and I think that's a good exposure to learn and on how to on what does it take to work with different geographies, different cultures, and all of that. And a lot of time that understanding and that experience basically leads to empathy that you can apply. I think I mean, I really picked it up from you that that scale prohibited agility. So that's a
That's true. That's true. That's true. See, when you are dealing with so many companies, sorry, just to share onto this, I learned one thing, that most of the Ford vehicles, erstwhile, were named after various suburbs in and around Detroit.
mhm.
So that was something very interesting, and that uh, brings in the aspect of being very locally grounded. At times, that also creates a problem in being agile. The One of the reasons is not only size. If you are so closely grounded, which is to a particular location, that happens.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think in US we do have that typical problem that this is where the world is.
Yes,
They
sure.
have a they have a World Series where only US teams participate.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
50 states of United States.
Yeah, that's a word. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, something. This is something that I have also experienced. Processes for everything. It can be sometimes overbearing, but they keep the organization intact. They keep the organization safe. There are lots of checks and balances and controls and all of that, right? So the other thing is again lots of women, which is a cultural difference. But I think it's also like how US always leads in diversity and inclusion, which I think companies in India are now picking up. And I was so happy to see like a video where I think there's a complete line in Tata Motors now run by ladies. I mean, it's so refreshing. And then you talked about Daimler Chrysler focusing, very focused on specific products, markets, and all of that, right? So Ford would be like everywhere, every product, and then you come to Daimler Chrysler, and it's like very very focused products, product segments, and then pride in their engineering and design, and like the collaboration with Germany. So at this point, the one question, the second question that I had was, what are the three unique differentiators you got by working for Ford and Chrysler? So from your questions, one of them I definitely picked up is that working in different cultures and geographies, which is an invaluable experience. You can't get it without working in that, right? Anything else? Anything other than that?
So I would say, see, accountability and ownership was very, very clear. So when that's something which I experienced. So when I took up a role in Chrysler, it was a complete end-to-end responsibility and ownership. Basically, it was to run your own P&L. So that was first time, which was that if you are running some system, some function, some application, then you run your P&L. You do a cross check. I had not seen this kind of a working before, right? So you are basically your own CEO slash CFO of your own systems, methods, processes. Um, you go campaign to your prospective users who are internal customers, or even at times outside, or in the proximity, like the supplier functions or the financing functions very closely, which works into the automotive industry. And then you make sure that your systems and solutions are appealing to them, they believe in what you are getting, what you are offering to them. And then there needs to be a right pricing for your offering so that they get what they are paying for. So those kind of a very differentiated experience, which helped me understand the entire aspect of application development and management, infrastructure management, that everything comes at a cost. And then how do you measure that cost? And at the end of the year, you are measured on basis your of course it was a virtual P&L, but how well you have managed your P&L in the overall scheme of things. So that was one major takeaway. And it's the third thing is cultural, Jagdish, which I've experienced more after I came back to India. Um I knew that it was there, but I felt it more. Uh, See, the thing is, yes means yes and no means no. There is no maybe.
Absolutely. I'm all smiles on that comment.
Right? So yes means yes, no means no. So I had, I used to. There used to be a lot of people who used to come from India, and then we used to take some kind of an orientation, and then the first thing which we used to tell, apart from the cultural orientation, in terms of how it's normal to see people eating in a conference room while the meeting is going on, and how the feet on the table is not something an indication of disrespect to you or the person, but also that say yes when you mean yes and say no when you mean no. So yes is yes, no is no, there is no maybe in between.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very big difference. And I think I have seen that wherever I've seen that, you can say a little less respect, or or a hesitation to work with. Actually, it's not just India, but with the eastern side of the world, is actually because of this fuzzy logic. A yes is not a complete yes, and a no is not a complete no, and there's always a maybe, and there are always excuses when you miss a deadline and all that. Yeah. So actually, just to reminisce that when I was running these international projects, we were running a very massive outsourcing program with Jaguar Land Rover, and I kind of sensed this discomfort. And one of the things I told my team is that instead of they feeling bad about it, I think let's raise our game and let's match them. Let's match them in accountability, in making your promises, in fulfilling your promises and all of that. And I think that actually put the team on a you know on a different challenging path. But I think the team did a fantastic job, and there was a lot of learning that it's not so easy. you know a yes is yes and no
It's
is no.
not
It's
easy.
not so easy. The biggest
It's
the
not
biggest
easy.
difference, if your yes has to be yes and no has to be a no, then the biggest difference is that it requires a lot of planning, because you got to plan for a yes to be yes and you got to plan for a no to be no, right? And be ready for questions why it is a no. Yeah, so it requires a lot of planning and preparation. If you don't plan and prepare, you can easily say yes or no. Yeah. So, Amol, I have a question here, a similar question here from Amarinder, and he's asking, picking up from what you mentioned earlier, how does the customer behavior differ between India and overseas, especially when it comes to automotive segment?
That's an interesting one. See, one, I would share some of my observations and what I learned over a period of time. I can answer it into two parts. One is India versus US as a market and a customer segment. Uh, See, in US, it's a need. It's something which is may not be called in the same breath as we can call it in today's terms, but it is basically food, shelter, air, as what we call. And after that, there is a vehicle in US, right? Now
Correct,
the
correct.
thing is, data and internet has kind of surpassed that, but it is still remains to be one of the basic necessities in life. So there is a very clear cut purpose when somebody buys a vehicle ownership which is there. Second is there is a very deep rooted dealer networks which are there, and which kind of existed for a very long period of time. With Tesla coming in, few things are changing there and getting challenged in more than one ways. That's one part. uh, com- See, if there is a very popular iconic product of Ford called as Ford Mustang. Many of us would have heard and it would have seen in the old Hollywood movies. So if there is a Mustang in a household, it's definitely a father and son moment. Every Mustang had a father and son moment with it. I come across so many people who would say that, what did you do? Or so we are working on projects. That's what the Americans like to say. And what the project is that we are, uh, you know, taking our entire Mustang out and we are rebuilding it. People take a lot of pride in it, and it's a family vehicle. It's cherished that way. It's bought that way. So when it is not a question of necessity, it's a matter of passion. So people will buy and drive what they really want. uh, of course, money is a very big driving factor. Interestingly, the vehicles are relatively very cheap in US compared to what they are in India, because of the taxation and other things, right? So a very close to home example is that the Toyota Corolla, which is sold as a premier vehicle in India, is basically one of the very entry level sedans in US market.
Correct,
uh,
correct.
same,
Actually,
same is
you'll find Camry more prevalent there
correct.
than Corolla.
Yeah, then Corolla, and then same is the case with Honda Civic, right? So those were the very entry level things. So people look for one shift which has definitely been there in terms of if you want to spoil yourself, people will always buy an American vehicle. No Japanese vehicle typically. Japanese and Americans is a very simple distribution of vehicles and products when it comes to US markets. The kind of air conditioning and heating performance American vehicles will give you, no Japanese car will give you at that efficiency level to begin with. Uh, but of course, then people also think a lot about mileage these days, and the gas prices have a significant impact because uh, it's a utility vehicle. It's a utility for everyday life, so it fits into your monthly bills. That's a very fundamental difference. So that dominates a lot of customer behavior. Um, Things have started changing. The convenience which is there and the kind of features which had been there into the products, US is always leading the market into that space. The rest of the world I have seen catching up, or especially in Indian context, we are still catching up. For small example is cruise control has been around in US for many years. It came to India somewhere around 2010 or so. 2009 2010, that is the time frame when the cruise control came in as a thing. So those kind of things have been there. In India, it's this most second most valuable purchase anybody does after a house. That's a very differentiating point which is there. It's more to do with it's not that a utilitarian product which you buy in India. There is a lot of emotion attached with it. It's not just a point A to point B commute. Of course, COVID changed some of that kind of a perception and that kind of a thought process in market, but still it is a most valued purchase for two reasons: because people associate it with their status. So while with Mahindra, and we have all seen, so a white Scorpio with tinted glasses will cruise through any road anywhere, and the kind of dominance which you will get onto a road is completely unparalleled, right? In fact, I can share this with you is that women find Scorpio the safest vehicle. There
That's
are so
interesting.
many women Scorpio drivers, and Scorpio is also similar thing where people have bought it the same vehicle after the old one has kind of retired. And one of the reasons for that is you know very interesting, that if you are driving a Scorpio on an Indian road, आपको कोई आके भूल नहीं देगा. Nobody will try to come and just do a cut to your vehicle. It's always a very safe feeling.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I think it used to be similar for Safari.
Yeah, earlier days it used to be Safari when it
Earlier it
started.
used to be Safari. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are some very prominent differences between the geography-wise, the question which was there from Amarinder, and very much closer to home, the Indian urban customer behavior and rural customer behavior is completely different. It's depending on to the product what you are buying and all of that. Uh, See, the story goes that whenever there is a land acquisition which happens for any highway or mega projects in India, people get a lot of money with it. So if you go and check it out, what you did with the money, so they would say koti bana li aur ek gaadi kharid li, and typically they would say Scorpio kharid li. So that's the kind of a you know people associate themselves. People are seen, who you are is associated with which vehicle you drive and own, in a way.
Awesome. Yeah, so I think very very interesting insights, Amol. Especially, I mean, I have experienced it myself that vehicle is a necessity. In fact, in US and all, the public transport infrastructure is not that great,
Yeah.
and therefore vehicle is a necessity. After food and shelter, and as you rightly said, the other extreme of it is that it's a passion, whether it's a Mustang or a Porsche or a Ferrari. um,
Yes.
yeah, the other one is that, like, I mean, I think the way, because it's a necessity, therefore how it fits, how the vehicle and the fuel and everything fits into your monthly bill makes it, far more prominent part of your monthly budget than, let's say, in India, right? I think in India we don't really look at it so much unless you have a Noida to Gurgaon commute or a Thane to Mumbai or a Thane to Nariman Point kind of commute every day. You don't really look at it from a budget aspect, right? And yeah, I think I could actually see that cruise control is almost a necessity. I was in UK and uh, I rented a manual transmission car, which typically comes much cheaper. Um, but I was surprised that even in a manual transmission, there was a cruise control.
Cruise control.
You associate cruise control with automatic, and this was a Dacia Duster, which is in here is Renault Duster, and this Duster manual transmission had a cruise control, and I was surprised. So, but of course, like they also enforce their speed limits in a much more stricter way. The fines are much higher, and therefore people tend to, like put it on cruise control so that they don't overspeed and they don't hear honking from behind and all that. Yeah, and I
That
think I think
ecosystem has
the other
evolved basically. The ecosystem is evolved in every aspect, from regulation to behavior,
correct.
because three tickets and then your insurance is gone.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. So you better use cruise control, even if not 70, even if you put at 72, but you still use it, right? And the whole ecosystem. Part of the ecosystem is also your Google Maps and your navigation systems. Whenever there is a camera, they will beep beep. Hey, camera is coming. Like it's legal. Camera alerts are legal. What? That's surprising. Anyway, I think we need to move on in our discussion, Amol. But thanks for those insights. Nitin, I'll come to your question when we come to Mahindra, and I think we are logically setting up there. So, Amol, you set up the customer experience platform for Mahindra and Mahindra, and you had set up multiple non-customer facing COEs by then. So, what was different? And tell us about the customer experience platform, um, and what does it? How is it different? What does it need to get closer to the customers from a technology point of view?
So actually, it started with lot of
You
impromptu
can, you can
requirements.
actually you can start by first talking about what you did in the customer experience domain.
So actually, the whole thing is started with lot of impromptu requirements. Something which was needed in time, and see, somewhere around when the XUV 500 was launched, that was one of the first global SUVs from the house of Mahindras, which was launched, and the vehicle was very rich with features, very advanced tech, and it 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 was a very thoughtfully designed and differentiated product, meant for Indian customers, keeping in mind. See, one of the thought processes there is, that can Indian companies claim that premium vehicle price and can belong to that segment is always a question. And when you try to get in those kind of areas, the customer experience is one thing which is very, very important. If you are asking somebody to spend 15 lakhs or so on a product, in an Indian context, what is it that you are going to offer to them is very, very critical. So one of the key challenges which were there at the time were twofold. One is, how do we bring in the relevant product information and product features to our customers in a very simple and engaging way without necessarily being dependent onto the the knowledge of the salespeople on the ground, or the limited information which might be available, and how do you really present the whole package together to the customers. And that's how it started. So it started with a very impromptu requirement that look, we are launching this global product, a global standards design product in India, and then how do we demonstrate features for. We talked about cruise control earlier, Jagdish. There were a lot of new features like ABS. There was electronic stability program, which was there. Airbags. This was the first vehicle with almost 5 airbags at that point in time. How do you explain this to people? What happens then actually there, how does the ABS work, how does it really help you, how does the electronic stability program works for you, and there is no manpower which can explain this to you. And that's where it started. So we took up the task of explaining this through videos, that how better we can communicate unless we show it. Because like they say, picture says 1,000 words, but probably video says a million words if it is to be the truth, right? So we started with those videos which would demonstrate that how it would do. So we'll work with R&D teams that, okay, how does this depict the actual thing? The vehicle needs to look like our vehicle, the scenarios need to be relatable to the people, so how do you bring it? And that's how it started. We started with lot of kiosk solutions where we showed the multiple colors of the vehicle, key features of the vehicle. You don't really want a person to forget about the engine performance key parameters which are there. What are the other very distinguishing safety features which are there? So it turned out to be some of the solutions which were the customer experience slash sale assist tools, where you kind of also educate your feet on street in many ways to position and sell your product in a rightful way. That kind of led to consumer insighting, the need analysis, the persona making, and that's how it kind of started evolving from there. The kiosk solution was a very hit one. So we started with 25 ones, and we had to actually work grounds up because there was no technological solution which was there. The only touch experience which was available to Indian customers at that point in time was ATM, that too very limited ones. Beyond ATMs, even those ATMs had keypads for selecting yes, no, and side buttons and so on and so forth. So it started with that. We had to go up to the hardware design level, not only up to the software part of it, but looking at hardware, what would work, resistive versus capacity, and what would be the efficiencies, the working conditions. Uh, we had to also those remember this, that we had to think up to the power supply level, because in India you will still have the product power fluctuations. Then how does it behave, what kind of a range of voltage fluctuation the device can sustain. There were no standard makers of these capacitive touchscreens of the sizes we wanted in an industrial grade kind of a solution. So a lot of work went into designing that from ground. That created the inciting happened, and that one thing led to the another, and that was a huge success. Uh, when there was no vehicles, when the product was launched, people lined up before the kiosks, that they just wanted to get a sense of the vehicle, see the 360-degree view of the product, change the colors. And it was the first time a self exploration was brought into the picture, which is today one of the key themes in any premium product selling, that you need to give space, time, and tools for a customer for self exploration, which most of the times happens now onto the digital platforms. So that was the start of the journey. Then it moved on to doing it onto the sales stories on tablets, and then on mobile devices, AR VR solutions, the pre ownership experiences, post ownership experiences, uh, something which you are doing in the digital space, and how the handshake is happening into the real world, how effective you are creating the test drives for the customers. And one thing to the other kind of led to everything. There was always a consumer insighting, some problem solving. We took into consideration so many practical challenges, and I think that was one of the reasons what success we had in those kind of programs at that point in time. We solved for every explicit and inexplicit customer need which was there, which people thought and which people did not think. We received a lot of customer support also. A few years later, Mercedes started doing a sales story on a tablet, and there was on Team BHP, one of the very popular platforms in automotive space, somebody commented that he visited the Mercedes showroom, and then he was very impressed to see a story being told on a tablet device. So before us, there were so many from Team BHP who reacted that, okay, now Mercedes has kind of caught up. Mahindra has been doing this for last so many years in Indian space. So that happened naturally. We progressed into the web space because we saw that the number of visits to the dealership are reducing. So most of the customer which is walking into a showroom uh, is a well informed and educated customer. So you need to provide information of your products, where it is available. So right from those initial stages of awareness, curiosity, desire, and actual ownership, how do you position the products in a right way, in right shape, and in right formats, was the challenges which we solved for in different formats altogether. I think you're on mute, Jagdish.
Yeah, I muted myself when I put you on the solo layout. I was doing something. Yeah, I think this is this is almost a food for thought for a different clarity chat. Where we talk about customer experience as a dedicated subject. So, I'm also aware of time, 5:47. 13 more minutes and we have lots to cover, and that was the concern I told you right up front that we may not be able to finish it in 1 hour. So let's see what best we can do, and let's try to go into a little bit more of a rapid fire kind of mode. But
Sure.
just on this discussion, quick one again, rapid fire mode. Okay, so there's a question from Nitin. He asks, do you use AR VR XR for customer for post services? What are the area challenges in rollout?
Yes, I'll answer that very quickly. So, see, AR, VR happened a lot in the beginning of it, in the pre ownership phase. In the post ownership phase, it is mainly used for the training of the manpower when you are doing some complex assemblies, or dissemblies for that matter, for the purpose of training. Just to give you a sense, when Google glasses were available in India and were legal in India, we did use extensive use of Google glasses to demonstrate a lot of intricacies of product to the customers for manpower training and also for the repair works which was there. Of course, when it was not legalized, we couldn't use it, but there is
Yeah,
immense opportunities of doing that. The AR VR is basically now mainly used in Industry 4.0 segment, mostly onto the manufacturing side. There is a lot of applications of that. And VR AR is also into the mostly in the pre-ownership phase.
absolutely. So there's another comment from Satya. We call him Sat. So Sat says, in my honest opinion, the car configurator on Nano Portal was the first in India for cars being configured for customers. Yes, it was, but Nano, it's like success gets talked about, uh, and else gets forgotten. So yes, Satya, we did a lot of things, and Sats was like part of my team when we were designing the Nano Portal configurator, social engagement, and all of that. It was like a Gen Z portal for Nano, but of course there were lots of innovations we did for that. But Sats, you know, it would have been celebrated if the product was a success, and that's why they say in
No, actually,
automotive.
I find a Nano is a very good success because it kind of brought the things to that particular price point. Why it did not work in India is a topic of one full conversation, but that's not the purpose. Uh, the point what I'm only making is, see, the configurators existed for many years. In fact, the European countries were doing a configure. You cannot buy a product directly. You have to configure and then only you can buy it. It's everything is built to
Correct,
sell.
correct, correct.
Uh, Only thing what I would say, what where we solved the actual life problems is that we started showing people the tentative date of availability, solving for this stock whether it is available or not, and those kind of things. So
That's
those
a
were
big
some of
problem to solve.
the
Yeah,
areas. Yeah. It took
very
a hell
interesting.
lot of backend integration to your
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
DMSs,
absolutely.
ERPs of the world, but that's what we kind of tried to solve for, that to show the
Yeah.
stock availability and then the expected date of delivery.
Yeah. So many people talk about this build to stock and build to order. I think build to stock is easy, and build to order is like multiple notches out there, because you have to the number of systems and processes and supply chain stuff that you need to tie together is simply enormous. And I think that's a big one. So on that, maybe we'll skip a few questions, Amol, but this one I don't want to let go. In Mahindra, you moved from automotive to farm equipment, and in that farm equipment, you have to build for Bharat. So tell us about that experience and how farm was different from from automotives. So I'll just to restrict the discussion, top three.
Sure, sure. Top three. So, but I must tell you this, that that was one of the most enriching and transforming experiences for me as an individual, Jagdish. Uh, I got into that segment thinking that, look, I had done some work in customer experience and I know about something about product and customer behavior and everything. It would be very much next door kind of a thing, and I couldn't have been more wrong about it. Okay, I was completely wrong about it. Whatever I thought that we know or I knew at that point in time as an urban customer is completely different than a Bharat customer. The thought process is different. The purpose for the purchase is different, and so many other nuances which go into it. It's a completely different thing. Two other clear major things is basically the automotive. A vehicle is a very direct money kind of a business, right? You first get money, then you give a product. The tractors is something where you give a product first and then get the money. The whole agricultural industry is a very credit intensive industry. Everything is associated with the rains, everything is associated with monsoons, everything is associated with that every spell of uh, bad weather for that matter. We take so many things for granted, sitting in cities and not having that first hand experience for most of us. But if the rain spell does not happen for a particular 4 to 5 weeks, farmers will just skip the crop. Not because for this one, because if they do it and if you look at the time cycle through which that crop will be completed, they will not have an opportunity, they will miss the next cycle. It's not about today, it's about the two cycles in every year which they need to meet. Now, when you deal with so many of uncertainties, the customer behaviors are completely different. That needs to be then and there. So, language was one part. No English. You start with English everywhere, so it was no English. Second is it needed to be everything mobile first. We deliberated that whether there would be a mobile acceptance and all of that, but there is a lot of penetration of mobile devices in rural India. And third is keep it simple. So these are the three things which were the
So what was that?
basic principles on which we had to
No English, mobile first, and keep it simple.
know English, keep it simple.
Okay, okay. I think that's those are some good takeaways for anybody who wants to go to those vernacular and rural markets, right? Want to penetrate in the bottom of the pyramid markets. No, awesome, awesome. I think those are some good takeaways, Amol. So Amol, there is a question already out there from Prabhakar, but let's make that like one of our last questions before we move to rapid fire. Again, let's see how sharp we can keep it. So in our earlier discussion, you mentioned that you have explored generative AI and you have found success with it with thousands of users, and then you also had some successful forays with Metaverse in terms of employee and customer engagement. So tell us about the use cases and what are the learnings from these innovations. Now, typically most innovations get driven by partners, so I want you to also share some insights about how do you maximize or leverage the partners in these engagements.
See, Jagdish, we all are in an age of AI, but practically the AI, if I take it to the First Turing test is close to 75 years old technology, which has been in existence and has seen many winters, so to say, than us, and it has kind of been there for a long time. Generative AI has been that kid on the block, which is creating a lot of uh, euphoria around it. Suddenly people feel that it's a kind of a superhero kind of a thing. But in my view, it is the what generative AI has done is it's given a simple UI to access the AI power. While AI still needs to build for itself, but generative AI has become a user interface for that. Uh, Two, three areas which I would say I see generative AI into. One is an everyday generative AI, right? So it is an everyday thing what you do. Second is for business process and operations efficiency kind of a zone in which you can use these kind of tools. And third is a game changing AI, right? So how do you leverage and which ones do you leverage? I believe most of us are into the first and second phase. The first phase is more about the democratized one, where everybody is getting it, right. So WhatsApp has got now given a meta AI made available into the WhatsApp. Everybody is trying to bring their own version of this, super kit, quote unquote, on in their own flavor, which is there. So that's your everyday AI, how you are dealing with it. How do you bring that? So we see it in two ways, Jagdish, that generative AI is useful in your personal as well as professional life. And if you don't see it together, one cannot make it. See, it's more like when mobiles came first, we couldn't differentiate, right? So I think that is something which is happening in this space. So content creation, summarization, taking away the NPAs, non-productive actions and activities to save on time is something which is a focus, which is there. So we have been able to deploy some of these LLM tools and solutions which people can access. Our business in RPG is very, focused on lot of government tenders, and some of these government contracts are large infrastructure contracts, which happen and which necessarily goes through a lot of documentation. Nature of contracts what we see in every organization are very intense around it, so we have built some tools around it and we have seen fairly good success around it. There is some work we are also doing in the game changing AI space, where we have worked in the agtech space, agricultural technology, where we are trying, we attempted to predict the harvest time, which happens every 15 days of a cycle in tea estates. Now, that's a very, very classic example of just in time kind of a story. We hear about it in manufacturing, but the agriculture, where so many parameters and not so many in your control, you are dealing with, that's what happens. So these are some of the things. In content creation, whether it is a textual content or a image generated content or a video content, I think we have been fairly able to use. We did a AI Wali Diwali in RPG, which was recognized and celebrated, where we brought in people, our own employees, and made them do it. We ran a lot of AI kind of quizzes through our social media handles just to create an awareness and tell people. We conducted a lot of internal sessions where we just told people how all they can use generative AI in everyday life with use cases. Some of them were very interesting ones, some of them very, very basic ones, but the idea is to build capability and AI native workforce. Change management is the most important thing, and if you don't have the workforce which is uh, kind of capable of handling it, there is a challenge.
Absolutely. And what about the metaverse part?
So metaverse we used in a very interesting way. So typically you would find examples of metaverse in life sciences or real estates, or even somewhere to an automotive space you would see it. But most popular use cases in the real estate and some of those kind of environments. We used it for our premium institutes engagement, where we engaged with the premium management schools of India, and we created a collaborative platform for our engagement and student participation. close to 4,000 students participated virtually into it. They had an opportunity to connect peer to peer. There were certain tasks which were assigned, a very rigorous one. Idea was to let students explore themselves in what they believe with, because that's the core. Happiness is the core theme and a core value for RPG as a group. So around that how one finds an happiness by doing what you are passionate about the most. This was done. Went through a very rigorous cycle. Eventually, it was done by our HR team, HR campus engagement teams, and we saw tremendous success by leveraging this technology. Eventually, the thousands were shortlisted through many layers, and
Wow.
top were recognized by our chairman, Mr. Goenka. And some of those ideas we are very proud to say we are also funding to realize.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. No, so there was one question from Prabhakar about, like, nowadays Metaverse could be excellent technology for understanding the product before actually buying it. Well, I think Amol and his team used it. They kind of created RPG as a very exciting product and took it to the 4,000 students out there. But I think this is more in the product space. So maybe treat it as a rapid fire, Amol.
Yeah, so, Prabhakar, excellent question. Thank you for asking. 2 cents, my 2 cents onto this. See, the product experience is there. It's a function of two things. Metaverse as a technology still in 3D is not as closer to reality as we feel today. There is a good opportunity for exploration, but the amount of population which is there into all these verses is very low. Still, a very younger generation of population is there, and in my view, there is a very practical problem of how do you bring that verse experience into real life experience, including the web experiences. I will put into real life experiences. The whole, tokenization, the currencies which through which it is handled, how you operate in that entire end-to-end scheme, that is still not available in a seamless way. So while companies are experimenting with this, there is a limited success onto it. But I think continuing experiences of various advancements is the only way forward.
Awesome, awesome. So, guys, I think you know, absolutely amazing session. We are 3 minutes over, but let's take a few more minutes and complete the entire agenda. So, Amol, I have some rapid fires for you. So, if any one of you have a rapid fire, we have already given Amol quite a few rapid fires to make up for the time. But if you guys have any questions, please do shoot them across. So, so Amol, interesting. Any academic achievements?
The most is basically I again went back to school as part of research and did that, and I think publishing a paper way back somewhere, research papers on artificial intelligence is in 2003 is something I would say the highest point of
Awesome,
academic
awesome.
achievement. Very interesting times.
Yeah, but interestingly, you, despite being an engineer, you broke some records in languages.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Sorry, I missed a question, Jagdish. Could you please
I
repeat
said,
the
I said, I
question?
said, despite being an engineer, you were very good in languages, and you broke some academic records in languages.
Oh yes, no. So love of language has been there for a long. In my school days, I was a good student, top ranking student. But languages I always possessed. One thing which came in very handy is basically it makes easier to connect with people, no matter how you what you do, how
Absolutely.
you do, in what space you operate. Knowing languages helps. If at all it is in Hindi, Lehja matters. If you are in UP, they need to feel that you are very close to them. So understanding these languages has helped, and I had been good with languages. God has been kind, is what I would say.
Awesome,
More
awesome.
than my mother
So,
tongue, Marathi, other languages as well.
okay, so complete this sentence in one sentence. Great teachers are like.
The biggest blessings.
Okay, okay. No, that's great. That's great.
I had been blessed with some of the great teachers, including my mother, and some of the great teachers I had across, including the mentors in my professional life as well.
Okay, so the next one, your busiest day.
Busiest day used to be when I was handling the operations from Japan to North America. So I
Okay,
was literally following the sun.
okay, okay. From Japan to North America. I actually met somebody who was doing that. Of course, he was on the consulting side in the automotive, and it was like, my day starts with Toyota and it ends with Ford.
Yeah, so something like that. So we had operations in Japan and also in US, and then there was rest of the world in between. So yes,
Awesome.
that used to be the day, busiest days.
So, as you have grown as a leader, there are some things you stop doing, right? So, look at your own experience and tell us about three things that a leader has to stop doing to make space for your own growth going forward.
I would say I can sum it up in one most important thing: let it go.
Oh, awesome, awesome. I think that's a three-word sentence. Let it go. Yeah, I think you got to drop things off. Uh,
Yeah, so that thought process is very important. You get obsessed, you keep on holding on to something, it doesn't work. You need to let it go. It's always works with the build, operate, transfer methodology.
Actually, that's a
And
much more practical guidance. Okay, work on a build, operate, transfer methodology. Yeah, that's
yeah,
awesome.
and also it applies to your failures and successes. You have to let it go.
Yeah. Any advice for the next generation leaders?
Get your hands dirty.
Oh, that's so important. Yeah.
I'm not that old to say, but I always feel that somewhere you need to work with your own hands to know
Oh,
what you're
excellent.
talking about.
There's no alternative to that. I agree with you. And yeah, I mean, I've been asking you all the questions. Any questions from you to me? Reverse question. We also call it revenge question.
No revenge questions. This has been a very good interaction, Jagdish. Thank you for this. You had been in the industry and you had driven so many of these interventions, which you hear in industry. You had driven them so successfully. You are at a different phase in your career now. You are doing something. So, do you have any FOMO?
uh, to be frank, there are some, but when I look at the overall equation, like, in fact, in terms of what I have and what I don't have, I think the equation is still positive. Uh, what happened was, I think one of the reasons I came out, Amol, to be frank, was that, I mean, I was very hands on, very much like, into the thick of things and all of that. And then I figured out that as I kept on taking leadership roles and all, more and more of my time was spent on administration, handling the organization dynamics and a lot of those things, rather than doing the core work that creates value, right? So somehow, you know, I I thought, let me see if I can go back to more productive times, when what I do really creates value, and that happens. And of course, it gives me all of the time freed up. Is utilized by my golf and by various other things. I have control of my time. I can manage my calendar the way I like and all of that. So it's been a good bargain, I must say. Okay.
Happy to. Thank you for that, Jagdish.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, Amol, we do a quick summary of it. And it's primarily the takeaways from the various discussions we have. So uh, three learnings from Tata Motors that helped you so far. First, an experience in technology manufacturing processes, understanding the domain processes, methods, checks, human connections, and the line works. I actually noted it down. The line workers make you complete. They first judge you, and if you pass that test, then they trust you completely. And encourage mistakes. And I think these are things that we all can do as managers. get deep into the domain, get first-hand experience, which was Amol's advice. Dirty your hands, build human connections, prove yourself as a good human being, and encourage mistakes. Right. Again, we talked about the differences between global and Indian automotive companies. We talked about your Ford experience, the vast differences in cultures, communication, and operations, and that's an experience to be had, if you have to manage something like that. But of course, skill should not prohibit agility. The processes have to be strong if you want to really scale up globally. And Yeah, be a leader in diversity and inclusion. At Ford, we had lots of women, and I think we all need to encourage that diversity. um, Three differentiate. We talked about differentiators, between differences between Indian and global companies. One was, of course, accountability and ownership. Running you were running your own P&L with cross charging. You're doing internal marketing to promote your systems to users. So I think that's a very strong mindset that you need to have. So let's say if you want to be ready for working in global company, then you need to have that mindset of accountability and value creation, and be able to sell even if internally. Cultural, very important. Yes is a yes, no is a no. Be absolutely frank and candid, but then you have to actually do a lot of planning beforehand to get there. Again, there was a related question from Amrinder about the differences between Indian customers and US customers. In US, the vehicle is a necessity after food and shelter. In India, it's more of a status symbol, and the second most expensive purchase. In US, if it is not a necessity, it's a passion. It fits into your monthly bill, so a customer is much more cautious and conscious. There are some things which are like absolute necessity because of the way the ecosystem works, like cruise control. Um, Whereas in India, while all of that is not there, there's lots of differences between the urban and rural customer behaviors. The buying triggers are different. When there's a land acquisition, a Scorpio gets bought, and all of that. So I think the markets behave very, very differently. One is absolute necessity driven. Second is a lot of events and status and like life stage driven. Um, yeah. Then we talked about building a customer experience platform. I think the real takeaway there was building a hardware, starting from hardware and even power supply, building a grounds up platform which is suited for Indian situations, and then you keep evolving it, bring AR, VR, etc., etc. Bring tabs and all of that. But it has to be evolutionary and it has to be absolutely suited to your context. Um, then we were talking about the customer experience platform for Bharat, for Mahindra Tractors. And I think the takeaway was that automotive and farm are like chalk and cheese. Like cities and villages are for chalk and cheese. Agriculture is a very credit intensive industry with lots of uncertainties, and those uncertainties make the customer behavior very different. I think that's a message to everyone who's trying to look at the agriculture market or to at rural markets. And three things that you need to keep in mind when going to the rural markets: no English, mobile first, keep it simple. Okay. Um, yeah, and I think on the question around AI and metaverse, I think it was a good categorization that you have three different types of AI interventions that you can look at: everyday generative AI, democratization, content creation, summarization, etc., etc. Then business operations, government tenders, making sense of government tenders there, and then game changing AI, which is predicting harvest time and all of that. So I think when anybody is looking at AI, you can actually look at these three different areas and actually build interventions depending on your need. And yeah, we had a very exciting experiment with Metaverse, driving engagement with premier institutes, MBA candidates, 4,000 of them, and then shortlisting them through a very engaging process to get the best talent. Um I think that summary basically says how much we covered in that about 1 hour 10 minutes. But amazing session, Amol. Thanks for sharing your experiences, and thank you our audience for attending and engaging. And just to tell you, Amol, a good number of our audience actually watch it at leisure post to the live session, and we see a good number of views in the week ahead. So to all of you who are watching the recording, thank you for watching and engaging. And before I say thanks to Amol and call it a day, I can see I don't want to miss out on these comments that are being sent by Amrinder. So let me just bring them in. So Amrinder says, as we talk about Bharat customers, their context, rural economy, linkage to range, local language first, mobile first, credit driven. Oh my God, he has summarized it for us. I'm remembering a similar conversation I had with Gurraj Rao during his CIO role with Mahindra and Mahindra Finance on the same market and on the lines of customer empathy and trust. Absolutely true. I think they go hand in hand with Mahindra and market to market with Mahindra, right? And
The
I
customer
think there's
trust is
another
a key
summary.
thing.
Sorry, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And Amrinder always summarizes it, but then I always miss to bring it on the screen. So, Amrinder, thankfully, I'm not missing it this time. So, Amrinder writes a quick summary for us. Clear yes or clear no, but no, maybe well, clear yes for sure. To say the least about the special edition of ClariTea Chat after a break with Amol. Great to have an industry veteran who has built width and depth in an industry. Keen observer, willing learner, open explorer, all this while keeping an eye both on technology and culture, be it internal or customer behavior. As I write this, I'm loving this reverse question to you, Jagdish. Hey, thanks, Amrinder. Thanks for the beautiful summaries you write at the end of it. And I really, it took me a while to figure out what you're saying in the first sentence. But thanks for that humorous touch. Hey, on that note, Amol, thank you so much for joining me on the ClariTea Chat today.
No, absolutely, Jagdish. Thank you for having me, and it's been a pleasure. Uh, Thanks to you, the entire Clarity team, and the audience, and those nice comments. I enjoyed the conversation thoroughly. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And we'll be back on next to next Saturday. Yes, that's 20th July. Till then, goodbye. Enjoy your weekend. And thanks for watching it over the weekend for all of those who are not present here. Bye bye.
Bye.